My day started like any other, really. The usual routine. I'm a clinical psychologist, specializing in sleep disorders, trauma stuff. So yeah, busy, always busy. I got to the clinic early, sat down in my office, which smells faintly of old coffee and hand sanitizer, and started going through the schedule, making sure everything was in its right place, preparing for my first consultation. It's what I do. I'm good at it, or at least I've always thought I was. You need to be when you're dealing with other people's messed up minds, especially when it comes to sleep. That's a fragile thing for a lot of people. I was checking off patient names on my tablet, just marking things complete, moving things around. Pretty standard stuff. I remember specifically marking Mr. Henderson's afternoon appointment as complete. He'd been in and out, talked about his insomnia, the usual anxieties. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. So I remember tapping that little box, feeling that tiny little click under my thumb. Done. Finished with my afternoon for the day. But then, as I scrolled down a bit to check the next week's schedule, just a quick glance, I saw his name again, Mr. Henderson, listed for another appointment. Same date, same time, right there in the afternoon slot, right after the one I'd just marked. The same exact details. Well, that was odd. My eyes narrowed, I guess. I never make those kinds of clerical errors. My system is usually pretty bulletproof. Must be my mistake. I kind of mumbled to myself, a little laugh catching in my throat. I shook my head slightly. A software glitch, maybe. Yeah, that had to be it. Happens sometimes. Systems aren't perfect. I just left it there, figuring I'd call reception later to sort it out. No big deal, right? Just a little hiccup in the matrix, or whatever. The rest of the day blurred, a stream of anxious faces and hushed voices. People, mostly, just wanting to sleep. Wishing they could just close their eyes and forget. Funny, isn't it, how we crave oblivion? I gave my usual advice: deep breathing, routine, avoiding screens before bed, the usual. It's a good little script, and it often works, most of the time. After work, I was exhausted, drained, Dealing with so much raw human emotion, day in, day out, it takes a toll. All I wanted was to get home, unwind, forget about the day, forget about the weird little software slip-up. Forget about all the hushed whispers about strange things happening around the country that some news channels were starting to pick up. I'd seen a few headlines, people reporting odd dreams, or things manifesting from dreams. But that was for other experts to dissect, not me. Mass hysteria, probably. Or some new form of sleep deprivation psychosis spreading through social media. My job was, and always had been, about helping individuals find their way back to a normal sleep cycle. I walked into my living room, flicked on the lights. A bit too bright, maybe, for the mood I was in. I tossed my familiar leather bag onto the sofa, the one I carry every day. It landed with a soft thump against the cushion. And that's when it hit me. A sudden, sharp puff of cold air, even though all the windows were shut. Not a draft, just a burst of cold. Like someone had opened a freezer door right next to me, then snapped it shut. I shivered. Didn't think much of it, just brushed it off as my own body reacting to the sudden transition from outside to inside, or something. But then, as my hand dropped down to adjust a bag, my fingers brushed against the armrest of the sofa. And there it was. A strange, inexplicable dampness. Not wet, exactly. More like a clammy stickiness. Like someone had been sitting there for hours, sweating, profusely. My hand recoiled instantly.
a jerky, involuntary movement. I stared at the spot. Nothing. The fabric was perfectly dry. It felt exactly as it should. Just my imagination, I told myself, flexing my fingers. Definitely just me. I'm too tired. My voice sounded a little too loud in the quiet room. I went to the kitchen, made myself a cup of chamomile tea, tried to let the warmth seep into my bones, pushing away that weird cold sensation, that strange dampness. I settled onto a different armchair, away from the sofa, nursing my tea, turned on the TV. Just wanted some background noise, something normal. The news was on, naturally, and they were, of course, talking about it.
Those strange, isolated incidents cropping up all over the country. People seeing things, hearing things. The usual, you know. Nothing concrete, just a lot of panicked conjecture. I heard the anchor's voice droning on, something about widespread confusion, reports of shared illusions. As he spoke, my mind, for some reason, drifted. A memory, fuzzy around the edges, something from when I was a kid. Not a good memory. A dark maze, I think. I was lost, alone, couldn't find my way out. The kind of fear that really grabs you, right in the chest, makes you want to scream, but you can't. That feeling of being swallowed whole. It wasn't a frequent memory, just a flicker, a brief, uncomfortable flash. And then, as if on cue, the anchor's voice, it changed, twisted, like a speaker crackling, then morphing into this low, dry whisper. The words were incoherent, just a sibilant hiss that crawled along my skin. And the TV screen, it flickered, just for a fraction of a second. The news report vanished, replaced by a still image. A very brief, stark image of a dark, winding maze, just like in my memory. Then it was gone, back to the news. The anchor, his voice perfectly normal again, talking about traffic. I actually jumped. My remote clattered to the floor, bouncing twice before hitting the rug. My tea splashed over the side of the mug, scalding my fingers a little, but I barely felt it. My heart, it was actually thudding, a real heavy drumbeat inside my ribs. I gasped, a little puff of air escaping my lips. My eyes were absolutely glued to the screen, searching, looking for the maze again, looking for anything. But it was just him, talking about traffic accidents. Normal. Everything was normal. My mouth was suddenly dry, like sandpaper. And yeah, I could still feel that cold, ghostly touch from the sofa. Not on my hand anymore, but somehow just there. Every hair on my arms was standing on end. "No way," I whispered, my voice caught somewhere deep in my throat. It couldn't be. Not really. Just a coincidence. A bad signal. My own exhaustion playing tricks. That's all it was. It had to be. The first thing I wanted to do was call Linda, my best friend. She's the sensible one, the one who can always make me laugh, even when things are going to hell. Linda, just her voice, a normal human voice, would be enough. I fumbled for my phone. It felt heavy in my hand. I opened my contacts, scrolled through. There she was, Linda, with her bright, laughing picture and her number, all reassuringly normal. But then I saw it, just tucked in there, a small, italicized note under her name. A line of text I didn't recognize. Never, not once. The one you shouldn't trust when the moon is red. I just stared at it, my thumb hovering over the call button. What the hell was that? What was it doing there? I definitely didn't type it. I never would have typed anything like that. Was it a prank? Someone got into my phone? But who? And why? And what did it even mean? The moon certainly wasn't red.
Not tonight. Was it a warning from somewhere? Or just something else designed to mess with me? That thought was actually way worse, because if it was designed, who was doing the designing? And why me? I put the phone down, slowly. Didn't call. Couldn't. The thought of Linda answering, her normal voice, and then me asking her if she knew anything about this, it felt wrong, like I was dragging her into something I couldn't understand. That night was the beginning, or maybe just the clear continuation. The nightmares, they really started getting vivid and repetitive. Always the same setup. I was in a hallway, long, endless it felt like. The walls were gray, the kind of institutional gray you see in old hospitals. Overhead, fluorescent lights, flickering, always flickering. You know that buzzing sound they make, that low hum? It was always there, and it got louder. Each night, the hallway was a little longer. The ceiling felt a little lower, closing in. I'd walk, or sometimes I'd float. I just moved forward, but it never ended. One night, I decided I had enough. I turned around. I started running, backwards, trying to find a way out, the way I'd come. But the more I ran, the more the hallway just stretched out ahead of me. Infinite. It pulled away. That awful buzzing of the lights, it filled my head. Then there was a mirror, at the very end of this impossible hallway. A big one, floor to ceiling. I ran towards it, stumbling, gasping.
I needed to see my face, needed to know I was still me. But as I got closer, as my reflection came into view, something shifted. In the mirror, my image was running too, but it was running away from me, towards the other end of the hallway, towards the source of whatever dim, flickering light there was. And then I stopped, just a few feet from the glass. I looked closely at the reflection. My own face was contorted, panicked, eyes wide with real, bone-deep fear. But the reflection, it looked back at me, and it was smiling, a slow, chilling smile. It wasn't my smile, it wasn't my face, truly. It was something else looking out from my eyes, something alien. I woke up then, in a cold sweat, gasping for air, like I'd been running for miles. My heart was pounding again, a frantic drum. I sat bolt upright in bed. My room was dark but familiar. The old dresser, the bedside lamp, the stack of books, all there, all normal. I fumbled for my phone, squinted at the blue light. 2:37 in the morning. Just another messed up dream, right? But then I got up. I needed to move, needed to check, just to be sure. I walked around the room, pacing, touching familiar things. The edge of my desk, the framed photo of my parents. Everything felt solid, real. But as my eyes swept across the room to the far corner where I'd hung my jacket on a hook last night, I saw it. Just a little thing. A small tear. Not a regular rip. This was jagged, like a claw had slashed at it. And the fabric underneath, where it had been torn open, it wasn't the lining. It was a strange, fleshy pink, like something raw, like muscle. A piece of exposed, weeping meat. I just stood there, staring. My legs felt like lead. I didn't sleep again that night, not a wink. I couldn't. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Every creak of the old house sounded like a whisper. My mind kept replaying that smile in the mirror, that damn tear. I started grabbing my laptop, typing, anything. I started searching online, a frantic, desperate delve into anything about collective sleep disorders, anything about shared hallucinations. The news reports I dismissed earlier, I found them again. This time, I didn't scroll past.
I read every single word, every panicked tweet, every forum post, every shaky cell phone video. It wasn't just a few isolated cases, it was everywhere. I started a journal, a physical notebook, because somehow that felt safer, better than typing on a screen that might just decide to change its mind again. I logged everything: the Mr. Henderson incident, the cold spot on the sofa, the dampness, the TV flickering, the note in my phone, the nightmares, the jacket, every tiny detail. I tried to apply my clinical expertise, tried to link them, to find a pattern, a scientific explanation. But the more I wrote, the more I felt like I was losing control, like the words themselves were dissolving, losing their meaning. I was sleeping less and less. It wasn't a choice anymore. It was a necessity. Because every time I closed my eyes, even for a moment, I could feel it trying to drag me back in, back to that hallway, back to that smile. And the thought of what I might find waiting for me there, what might come back with me, it was too much. I needed solid ground, something real, something from a time when things made sense. I sat in my living room, the lights low, trying to calm myself down. I dug out an old external hard drive, plugged it in, loaded up some old videos, childhood stuff, family picnics, birthday parties. I just needed to see me, the old me, the happy me, before all this. I found one. A summer afternoon. We were at a park. My dad was filming. My mom was laughing. And little me, probably about 5 or 6, was running on the grass, a bright yellow dress, waving at the camera, smiling. A real, honest-to-God smile. The kind you don't even think about. I watched it loop a few times. God, it felt good, normal. I needed that feeling. I rewound the clip. I wanted to see my dad clearly. He was holding the camera, kinda messing around. Then he pointed it at me again, and I was waving at the camera, waving at my dad. And then it happened. The entire frame shifted. My dad, who was holding the camera, suddenly he just leaned forward, right into the lens. His face, it filled the screen. And then a voice came out. Not his voice, not human at all. It was a machine, distorted, crackling, like bad feedback.
It said, "The girl still doesn't remember anything." My blood ran cold. I barely had time to process that impossible, mechanical voice, because the image on the screen lurched again. It zipped past my dad's face, blurring everything, and then it settled. Right on little me. Still smiling, still waving. But her eyes, oh God, her eyes. They weren't innocent. They weren't happy. They were staring straight into the camera, right at me. No emotion at all. Just blank. And in that terrifying blankness, there was something else. Someone else. A flicker. The same strange alien look I'd seen in my reflection. A cold, dead stare that didn't belong to any child. My hands flew to my mouth. I bit down hard. My whole body was shaking. My own video. My own childhood. It was corrupted, twisted. It wasn't a glitch. It was intentional. Someone knew. Something knew. It was in there, inside my memory, inside my past. And it was talking to me, or through my dad, or through my childhood self. God, I had to get rid of it. All of it. I sat there, hunched over my laptop, watching that little video file delete. Then the whole folder. Then my entire photo library. Every single memory. Every single picture. Every clip. Gone. Wiped. Maybe if it was gone,
It couldn't be used against me anymore. It was a dumb, desperate thought, I know, but at that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do. I felt something crawling under my skin, a sickening itch, like insects scurrying just beneath the surface. I shivered violently, pulling my knees up to my chest. The apartment was pitch black now. I hadn't dared to turn on any more lights. My eyes were burning, raw from staring at the screen for so long, and from not sleeping. I was so tired. But fear kept me awake. Fear of my dreams. Fear of what else was out there, or in here. I got up, eventually, moving like an old woman. My muscles ached. I walked to the window, pulled back the curtain an inch, looked out at the city below. All those lights, all those people, sleeping, oblivious. Or maybe not. Maybe some of them were seeing it too, feeling it too. I couldn't hear anything, just the faint, distant hum of the city, a sound I usually found comforting. Tonight, it just sounded empty. I let the curtain fall back into place. Then it started. 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. On my front door. I knew. I just knew. No one came to visit me at this hour. Not ever. My hand flew to my mouth again, stifling a gasp. My breath caught in my chest. I didn't move, barely dared to breathe. Just listened. Listened to the deafening silence after those 3 knocks. Then they came again, louder this time, and with them a faint whisper. So quiet, I almost missed it. But I didn't. It was my voice, from the video, the one I'd just deleted. Slow, cold, dripping with something so much worse than malevolence. It said, "Why did you delete it? Don't you remember who you are?" It came again, those 3 knocks, louder this time, and the voice, my voice, but not. It was that slow, cold, dripping sound from the video I deleted. Why did you delete it? Don't you remember who you are? I just stood there, pressed against the wall, not even breathing. My heart felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. My legs were just cement. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think. Those words, they twisted in my head, a knot. Don't you remember who you are? The knocking didn't come again, but the silence that followed was worse. It stretched out, heavy and thick, pressing in on me from every corner of the dark apartment. I imagined it out there, on the other side of my door. Waiting. Just waiting. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I managed to push myself away from the wall. My knees felt wobbly. My mouth was still dry. I had to get out. Not just out of the apartment, but out of this mess. I had to find something, some answer, anything. The old research center, the one the fragmented documents I'd found online kept mentioning, a place called the Aura Institute. It was supposed to be a hub for fringe psychology, sleep studies, things that bordered on, well, spiritual back then. Now it was just an abandoned building in the Catskills, miles away. A long drive. A dangerous drive, given what the news had been hinting at.
But where else could I go? What else could I do? Sitting here, waiting for my own face to knock on my door again, was not an option. I grabbed my jacket, the one with the torn, fleshy pink lining. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Didn't make sense, I know, but it felt important somehow. A piece of the puzzle. I snatched my car keys, my phone, threw a few granola bars and a bottle of water into my bag. Survival instincts, I guess. The kind you don't even know you have until you need them. Stepping out into the dawn, the city was different. That was the first thing. The usual rush, the usual vibrant chaos of New York, it was dulled. Like someone had turned down the saturation dial on the world. The bright yellow of a taxicab that sped by me, it wasn't bright anymore. It was a faded, sickly mustard. The green of the trees in Central Park across the street, they looked like old photographs. All the rich, deep colors, they were washed out, muted, tinged with a strange silver-gray hue. Like the entire city was slowly becoming a sepia-toned memory. "Just the light," I mumbled, tugging at my sleeve. My eyes narrowed, trying to force the colors back into focus. Yeah, probably just the early morning light, and I haven't had coffee, obviously. I rubbed my temples, trying to clear my head. It had to be that. Fatigue, stress. I got in my car, a beat-up sedan that always smelled faintly of stale fries. Started the engine. The sound was comforting, a solid rumble. Or it used to be. I drove through the streets, heading towards the highway. The city felt wrong. Everything felt thinner. When I passed a construction site, the one on 42nd Street that had been going on for years, I heard the familiar clang of metal on metal. But it wasn't coming from the cranes or the steel beams. No, it was coming from the bare concrete skeleton of the skyscraper they were building. That metal sound, it was echoing, grating, against the gray, rough surface of the concrete itself, like bones grinding together. And then a faint breeze swept through the open space. I felt it, a cool touch on my face, and I smelled it. The distinct aroma of damp earth and wild grass. Not from the small patch of parkland a block away. No, the smell was wafting directly from those concrete walls, from the building itself. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the thrum of the engine. A shiver, cold and sharp, traced its way down my spine. I gripped the steering wheel harder. Just the wind, right? Carrying smells from somewhere far away. Yeah, that's it. My rationalizations were getting weaker, I knew it. But I couldn't stop them. Couldn't stop trying to make sense of things that made no sense. I finally hit the highway. The sun, a feeble, watery disk in the faded sky, was trying to climb higher. On the radio, the news was a distorted mess. Static, then fragments of voices. Widespread confusion, reports of shared lockdown in effect for sectors, unexplained phenomena. I tried to turn up the volume, twisting the knob. But the louder I tried to make it, the more the voices crackled, twisted. They turned into something else, not words anymore. Just a grating, guttural scream stretched thin. A sound that made my teeth ache. And as that happened, all the other sounds of the highway, the roar of other cars, the distant honking, even my own engine idle, they started to just fade, get quieter, like they were being sucked away, absorbed, into the increasing shriek from the radio. My heart was racing. I slammed my hand onto the dashboard. "Stop it!" I yelled, though I didn't know who I was yelling at. I leaned forward, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles were white. A tunnel entrance loomed ahead, the Catskill Mountain Tunnel, and it was closed. A huge red barrier, signs flashing closed.
My escape route was blocked. I cursed, slamming on the brakes. The car skidded slightly before coming to a stop just feet from the barrier. I stared at it, panic rising. What now? There was no other way. I slammed my hand against the driver's side window, a desperate, angry gesture. The glass didn't even vibrate, not a scratch, not a sound. It felt solid, immutable. And as my hand dropped, spent, the barrier ahead, the massive metal gate, it slowly, silently, began to open from the other side, like a door being politely held open for me. I gasped, a small, choked sound.
My foot hit the brake pedal again, though the car was already stopped. My hands, they were shaking badly on the steering wheel. I could feel the tremor rattling through my entire body. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. My mind was screaming, but there was no sound. No way. This wasn't just a glitch. This wasn't my imagination. This was deliberate. I gripped the wheel tighter. What choice did I have? Turn around? Go back into that city that was already dissolving? That thing, my voice, at my door. No, just no. I took a deep, shaky breath, put the car in drive, and, slowly, cautiously, I drove forward, towards the yawning, open, black mouth of the tunnel. As I entered, the light from behind was swallowed almost immediately. I glanced into the rear-view mirror, and the tunnel entrance, the one I had just driven through, it was gone. Just a solid wall of rock, wet and glistening, behind me. Like it had never existed, like it had closed up the moment I passed. I pressed the accelerator. Faster, got to get out, got to just keep going. When I finally emerged from the tunnel, the world outside, it was exactly what I had feared. The muted, gray silver of the city was nothing compared to this. Here, the landscape was outright crumbling. Buildings I recognized, small motels, gas stations, they looked like teeth in an old, rotting mouth. Concrete was cracked open, revealing rebar twisted like brittle bones. Rust, thick and orange-brown, coated everything, growing on the surfaces like some kind of fleshy weed. Neon signs, dark and grimy, suddenly flickered to life as I passed, displaying nonsensical sequences of letters and symbols. Words, but not words, like a language I almost knew but couldn't quite grasp. The air itself had a smell now, strong and awful. It was the tang of metallic decay, mixed with the sickly sweet dampness of something very old coming apart. I clutched my nose. It made my stomach churn. I tried to follow the GPS, but the screen was glitching, jumping erratically. It showed me heading north, then south, then west, spinning without reason. I picked a road, any road, just to keep moving. But after a few minutes, I pulled onto what looked like a main road, a wide asphalt path, and the scenery, it was the same. The same rotting motel, the same gas station with the rusting pump, the same neon sign showing its scramble of alien letters. I'd looped back. I tried again, took a different turn, drove for 5 more minutes, and there it was, the same sight. Again. And this time, the rot was worse. A gas pump had fallen over, spilling a black, oily substance onto the cracked asphalt. The neon sign was flickering more violently, the meaningless letters shining with a desperate pulsing glow. And the smell, it was heavier now, choking. I felt something else, though. As I stared at this repeating, dissolving landscape, I saw it. Faint, hazy plumes of black smoke.
They were not from fires. They were rising from the tops of the decaying buildings, drifting up into the muted sky. And I knew, deep down, somehow, that they were my despair, my fear, my collapsing mind. They were manifesting right there, in the air around me. This wasn't a city anymore. This wasn't even a world. This was the inside of a dream. My dream, or everyone's. And it was going to eat me alive. I was stuck, caught in a horrible feedback loop, and with every turn, every repeat, it got worse. I was right in the middle of it, and I was, in some sick way, helping to build it. My fear was fuel. I drove again, in a kind of daze. I don't know how many I looped. It felt like dozens, like hours. Each time, the decay deepened, the colors leached further out of the world, leaving behind a stark, gray, and rusted landscape. The smells became unbearable. And overhead, I started to hear them. Not the shrieking from the radio anymore, no. These were guttural roars, distant, echoing, like something huge, impossibly huge, was moving in the sky. Or maybe just above the surface of my consciousness. The collective nightmares. They were here, already. Eventually, somehow, through sheer dumb luck, or perhaps a moment's lapse in the nightmare's logic, I found it. The Aura Institute. It wasn't on any road I knew. It just appeared at the end of a long, straight stretch of asphalt that miraculously hadn't looped. An old stone building, partially overgrown with what looked like black moss, perched on a hill.
It looked old, forgotten, decayed like everything else, but with a different kind of decay. A slower, more dignified kind. I pulled up to a cracked stone archway that once held gates. Now they were gone. I drove through. The courtyard was a tangle of strange, thorny plants. The air felt colder here, very cold. I pushed open the heavy main door. It groaned, a long, drawn-out sound, like an old man waking up. Inside, it was dark, musty, but clean in a way. Just dead. Like a place that had been sealed away for a very long time. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight. The place was a maze of dusty hallways and abandoned labs. Broken equipment, faded charts on the walls, strange symbols etched into the floor in places. I walked, my footsteps echoing loudly. I was looking for anything, a computer, files, anything that might explain what was happening. And I found it. In a large room, deeper in the building, filled with what looked like ancient server racks and whirring, glowing machinery, I found a desk, and on it a single old desktop computer. Miraculously, it powered on. The screen flickered, showing a login. I tried standard passwords. Guest, admin, nothing. Then, on a whim, I typed Aura. The screen unlocked. There was only one folder on the desktop. Reactive Subconscious Entity Research. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. I clicked it open. Hundreds of files, scanned documents, journal entries, diagrams. I started reading, skimming frantically. Names, dates, theories. About a psychic spatial rupture. Something born of collective fear. A thing that could not be destroyed, only contained. And then I saw it. A picture file, simply titled Team. I clicked it open. It was an old photograph,
faded to that same gray-silver tone that was draining the world outside. A group of scientists, maybe a dozen of them, standing in a lab. Old-fashioned lab coats, serious faces. And then I saw her. A woman, standing in the middle. Her hair was pulled back, a few strands escaping. Her eyes, even in the blurry old photograph, held a familiar intensity. Her build, her stance, she looked exactly like me. My breath hitched. I zoomed in on the image, my finger trembling on the mouse pad. Closer, closer. The woman in the photo was wearing a necklace, a simple silver chain with a small, round pendant. And on that pendant, etched clearly into the metal, were 2 letters, J.M. My heart stopped. Then it restarted, beating like a frantic drum against my ribs. I reached up, my fingers brushing against the cold metal at my own throat. The necklace I always wore, the one I'd had since I was a child. A gift from my mother, a simple silver chain, and on the small, round pendant, J.M. Identical, exactly identical. My hand flew to the back of the photo. It was blank. But then, as I held it, felt the faint texture of aged paper, I noticed something. Tiny, almost invisible indentations on the back. Writing. Old, looping script. It was faded, but I could make out the words. The Guardian, you have slept too long. My brain froze. The Guardian, slept too long. My whole life filled with sleep disorders, with strange recurring nightmares that felt more real than reality. And that voice at my door, my own voice, asking, "Don't you remember who you are?" It wasn't a nightmare, not really. It was memory, or something far worse. I looked at the notes again. The entity couldn't be killed. It was part of us, part of humanity's subconscious. The only way, the only solution, was to cut off its food supply, to sever the connection, to eliminate the source, the collective consciousness itself. This was crazy. I was crazy. But the world outside the windows, the crumbling, rotting, screaming world, was crazier. I looked around the room. The huge humming machines, the glowing symbols. This wasn't just a lab. It was a control room, a tomb, and a key. I walked numbly towards the largest console, a massive structure that hummed with a low, deep thrum. It was covered in more of those glowing symbols, strange, ancient-looking glyphs I couldn't understand. But somehow, just looking at them, I knew their meaning. I knew their purpose. There was a central pedestal rising from the console, and on top, a single, glowing red button. The activation button. I understood now. I didn't want to, but I did. This was it. The choice. The price we had to pay for our own fear, for our own dreams, for our own existence.
Ending it for everyone. A collective coma, an eternal sleep, a world of silent, unthinking peace, to save us from ourselves. My hand trembled. It was heavy, so heavy. I could barely lift it. I looked out the massive window built into the far wall of the lab. The world outside, it was a complete mess. Buildings were melting, literally flowing down the hillsides like wax.
Jagged, black masses, like solidified nightmares, were clawing at the sky, their roars replaced by something that sounded like tearing silk. All of them expressions of fear made manifest. They were dying and being born again, over and over, a cycle of terror. The back of the console, the massive machine behind me, started to ripple. It felt soft, alive. It pulsed with a low, deep vibration against my skin, and I could hear it, close, a murmur, not words, but sounds, whispers, begging, plea for me not to do it, not to cut it off. Its life, its existence. I closed my eyes. The weight in my chest was crushing, but I had to. I had to. "I've slept long enough," I whispered, and the voice that came out, it wasn't quite mine. It was deeper, older, a strange echo. Now it's time for everyone else, too. And then I pressed the button. The world outside the window just stopped. The melting buildings froze. The black, clawing masses in the sky, they solidified, then, slowly, impossibly, faded away into nothingness. The roars died. The metallic stench lifted. Everything became still. So still. And cold. Terribly, utterly cold. Centuries. I don't know exactly how many. Time itself felt different now. I was still here, or some version of me. This facility, it was rebuilt, clean, sterile, humming with efficiency. But it was just machinery now, drones, robots, maintenance, and a low, almost imperceptible lullaby piped through hidden speakers, everywhere, always. The city outside, and indeed the world, it was beautiful, pristine, but it was a beauty devoid of life, of chaos, of color, a cold, perfect beauty. No one was truly awake anymore, just the sleepers. Billions of them, hooked up, calm, unmoving, their bodies meticulously maintained, their minds still. I sat in a dark monitoring room, no natural light here, just the soft glow of countless screens, each one a life sign, showing the steady, flat lines of consciousness held in a manufactured sleep. A peaceful world, a world without fear, without dreams. Everything was stable, peaceful. I leaned back in my chair, stretched out the old, aching muscles in my neck. My eyes scanned the matrix of screens. Nothing. Forever and ever, nothing. But then, my gaze snagged on a single screen, one of the regional monitors, far away, a remote sector. Greenland, maybe, or somewhere in the Pacific. I couldn't quite tell. A tiny line, a flicker, a small, insignificant blip on the otherwise perfect flat wave. A deviation. Then it was gone. Just a tiny electric spark. I sat straighter, frowned. Exhaustion, maybe. My eyes were playing tricks. But then it happened again. Another flicker, from a different individual, then another. And another, small, so small, but undeniable, like distant, barely there starlight in a vast, empty sky. A sound, then. I heard it, very, very faintly. A soft tinkling, like bamboo wind chimes, from a coffee shop I used to visit a lifetime ago, echoing in the vast, silent monitoring room. And then, even fainter, almost beyond the edge of hearing, a ripple, a sound that made my chest tighten with something I hadn't felt in, well, centuries. The sound of children giggling, far away, so very far away, like a dream, just beginning.